GoLoud.
Welcome back to the Weekly Roast. How's it going, guys? How the hell are you? How are your hearts? And of course, as always, the most important question in the world, how are your heads? Guys, today my heart and my head are both doing spectacularly well. I've just been informed that last week was our record number of listeners to the podcast since we started, and I am just so over the moon. I'm so unbelievably grateful for you taking the time to listen to the show each week. It is my favourite time of the week, sitting in this chair, and I just want to thank you so much for listening, okay? Genuinely, it's phenomenal. So I really and truly appreciate it. With that, of course, there's a catch. There's always a catch at the end of the day. The Patreon is now up and running, and the first issue of the Weekly Woes is going to drop on Friday. Okay, the Weekly Woes, as I described last week, is a column where I answer some of your questions in a long form and more meaningful way. And I'll also be doing deep dives on some of the more outrageous contributions that we've had to the show that require further exploring, such as, do you remember the sister-in-law who walked in on? Nevertheless, each week on the Patreon, I'm going to be releasing a new article on that platform exclusively for Patreon subscribers. So genuinely, if you're a fan of my work, whether it was the book, the podcast, the articles I write for Image Magazine, or you just enjoy the roasts on Instagram, please join me on Patreon because that's where I can reach you directly. This, by the way, is also the place where if you want to get first access to live shows in the new year, movie clubs, etc., you will receive priority over everybody else. So long story short, if you've been enjoying the podcast over the last year, this is the most effective way of showing your support, and I would be eternally grateful for all of you for subscribing so you can read some more of my writing. Last but not least, Patreon is also coming up to Christmas. Patreon is where I manage the requests for personalised Christmas roasts. So if you or a loved one, basically I will do personalised podcasts for you for Christmas. So if you or a loved one would like a personalised roast as a Christmas gift, it's sort of the ideal Secret Santa. You can order that on Patreon. So that's where it's all happening. Patreon.com/Mark Mehigan. To make your life easier, there is a link in the bio of this podcast, and that's where you can subscribe. I would truly appreciate it. Now, it is the roast of sisters-in-law. I don't even know where to begin with this one, to be brutally honest. You would need more hands than a Chernobylese Ganesh to count the amount of loon sister-in-laws doing the rounds in Ireland. I was astonished with some of the replies that I got sent in yesterday. And dare I add, by the way, the pervasive culture of weight-related hate in Ireland still is absolutely outrageous. So I've had to trim some of the fat, if you'll allow the pun, and keep the body-shaming submissions to a minimum. But I will say, I probably received about 2,000 replies yesterday, okay? And I would say comfortably 40% of those were related to weight. So, nevertheless, speaking of weight, speaking of which, as always, tucked away in my heaving cleavage, slurping from my milky jugs, mouth stretched, eyes shut, fists wrapped around my forefinger like a suckling baby lamb, it's our one and only Kieran. How are we, boy?
Good day, good day.
How are those lips treating you?
Oh, they're perking.
It's the roast of sister-in-laws. Let's go.
Hi Mark, my sister-in-law lets her dog shit inside the house. Now, in fairness, they're only inside the kitchen, but still inside the house. And she doesn't clean it up for a couple of days because she claims it's easier to clean up after it's dried for a few days. So she'll leave it and wait for it to dry until she cleans it up. Absolutely insane levels of fucking loon.
I never thought, this is like the earliest Paul Hollywood handshake we've had in the podcast so far. That is derangement levels of disturbing. And also, I might add, that's the most liberal use of unfairness I've ever heard in my life. Dr. fucking Poolittle. This is absolutely disgraceful. Oh, hey, June, how's it going? We coming in for a cup of tea? Yeah, just ignore the dirty fecal tapestry of domesticated animal neglect there. Come in and I'll make you a cuppa. No, thank you. I'm grand, actually. People that are too familiar with their pets, just no thank you. Do you know what I mean? For instance, once you're kissing your dog on the lips or letting cats up on the kitchen counters, that's when I'm gone. That's when I'm out, okay? You can keep your cuppa with your dirty pet paws, fucking fondling the tea bags with fleas on your gi and worms up your arse. Do you know what I mean? Just no. Depraved. Your animals are animals, and although some people have I feel like we're the middle generation when it comes to animals, where we have like a healthy love and adoration for them. We're not inviting them into our bed. We're not kissing them on the lips. We're not, doing that. But equally, my dad's generation is like, if the dog goes into the living room, shoot it. So that's a shame. Rufus was a good dog. There you go. Few rocks to the head, Outrageous. On we go.
Hey Mark, love the show. So my sister-in-law is the scabbiest person I've ever met in my whole entire life. She'd insist you go to the pub, and then when you get down there, she'd make you pay for all her drinks, claim that she forgot her wallet. And one of her big ones is she orders a round of drink, waits a few minutes till the barman comes close, and then disappears to the toilet because she has to have a wee. And then comes out and says, "Oh, sorry, I'll get the next one." And we all look at her saying, "Will you fuck off? We're well used to you being a stinge." If you call her out on it, she brings on the waterworks, plays the victim, and storms off home and tries to make everyone feel bad. It's a fucking joke.
Again, guys, we're faced with the reality that tight people are everywhere, and also tight people are the worst. It always just amazes me how they think they're getting away from it. Are they living on a completely different planet when everybody knows what they're doing? Do you know what I mean? Tight people are about as detached from reality as a 37-year-old hash salesman from Strokestown having a picture of Tony Soprano as his profile picture on Facebook. Do you know what I mean? The closest he'll ever come to a soprano is if he gets caught exposing himself to the local chorister in the church car park after the Christmas carols. Do you get that? Comes close to a soprano. Yeah. Just a joke about geography and perversion with a double meaning. Just a little bit of weekly roast wordplay for the syntax aficionados out there. Now, the thing about tight people, whenever they're like, the excuse of like, he's just bad with money, maybe. Maybe he's just bad with money. He's not down the soup kitchen giving out Versace boxers and Stanley Cups to the people in need. Do you know what I mean? He's not using fivers to wipe the sweat of the brows of pilgrims and lords, was he? No, it's never. You're bad with money when it comes to parting with it and contribution to something that isn't entirely about yourself. That's what these tight people are, just very money conscious. They never seem to be conscious around my money. They never seem to be conscious around other people's money. They're never worried about how other people spend the money if it's being spent on them. Tight people are the worst. They're the lowest rung on the ladder of imbeciles in society, I think. And we've got another one. So let's just run the tape. We'll go straight to the next one because we've got another tight person. Let's go.
Hey there. So my fabulous sister-in-law was so delighted when we got engaged. She insisted that we have an engagement party, and we really didn't want to, obviously we were going to have a wedding to pay for and things were tight, but she point blank refused. It had to happen. It was such a big occasion, and asked could she plan it because she worked in marketing and events were her thing. She said all we'd have to do is turn up. So I thought, okay, fine. So she planned the whole thing, booked venue in town, Lemon and Duke, organised decorations, a cake, platters of food, you name it. So really went all out, and then asked me for my email address and sent me the payment link to pay for the whole thing. Not quite just having to turn up.
Just good luck. You're an absolute dirtbag. It's the manipulation. It's the deceit. I hate that. I absolutely cannot. Being mean and miserable, being tight it's the worst trait. I would rather be called anything, and I've been called everything, but to be known as to be tight, I think that's the worst. That is, no thank you. On we go.
Well, Mark, love the podcast. With regards to sister-in-laws, one of my sister-in-laws one time she was talking about how she put on a bit of weight, and she was like, I feel like I'm putting on weight and whatever, la la la. And I was like, no, you look fab. Don't be saying that about yourself. And she goes, no, no, I have like, I'm now a fat person. And I was like, don't be saying that. And she was like, I just wonder, like, where do fat people buy their clothes? And she kind of paused, and she goes like, where do you buy your clothes? Just jaw dropped, didn't know what to do, like total stunned. So yeah, love the podcast.
That's just absolute outrageous. It's so mean. Like the pause. Where do you? Yeah. I'm just wondering. I'm wondering where hogs and heifers get their garb. Do you know what I mean? Any idea of where whales pick up their garments before? You know what I mean? Actually, where do you get your sheets and duvets that you fashion into sort of toga? Are you going to a gladiator theme party later? Because it looks like you're just wearing a Debenhams king size. The duck feather satin down. Do you know what I mean? It's so outrageous. I think in that instance, you're just totally entitled to wipe her off as a person, because I don't even want to say that's passive aggressive. It's just pathetic. It's mean. It's bullying. On we go.
So my sister-in-law is a complete dose, and she basically makes big announcements on the family group. Most recent one was to let everybody know that she won't be sending Christmas cards this year, that she'll make a donation to charity instead. Like, no one cares. She also actually did like this 100 days of walking, basically going for a walk every day. And we got a selfie on the family group quite literally every day. Day 22, keep on going. Day 23, keep moving your body. Like day 24, still walking. Like, seriously, why?
Yeah, like, I completely agree with this. The difference between doing something for charity versus doing something for charity and letting everybody know about it is as stark as the difference between experiencing a stroke of luck and suffering a massive stroke. Do you know what I mean? Like, the difference between giving a pizza to a homeless person versus giving a pizza to a homeless person and then filming it is utterly galactic. Because one of those is an act, it's just a kind gesture of goodwill, highlighting to the person on the street that you see their suffering and you'd like to help. Whereas the other, of course, is a stunningly self-absorbed display of just narcissism. Isn't that? That's all it is. Like, did I ever tell you about the girl, Kieran? I went to, I think it was the first year we were out of school, there was a girl I knew and she raised loads of money to go to Haiti, you know, to help rebuild the houses after the earthquake in 2010. Bear in mind now, this girl would struggle to keep Tamagotchi alive for longer than a fortnight. Okay. Yet she convinced half of Dublin that she was going to build a few 2-bedroom gaffs in the space of 9 days. Like, how was that going to work? Maybe she was the answer to the housing crisis that we weren't even aware of. But I remember thinking at the age of like 19, this is just a bit mad. Like, she was having like 5 different events, from the white collar boxing to the quiz nights to all of this. And I'm going, but why don't we just give all of this money directly to the Haitians? Why do we have to pay for your flights? Do you know, why do you have to pay for your hotel, for your accommodation, the 3-day layover in New York? Like, this is just, why are you flying overseas? Jenny Malloy from Kilmacud, currently doing public relations in DBS online, is currently going to be, is going to be traipsing around Haiti with a hard hat on and a pencil in her teeth, like catcalling the local women out of a white van with a sunburned forearm and a copy of the Irish Mirror on the dashboard. You're not a construction worker, Jenny. You're a 21-year-old girl who was recently convinced that she could find Coney, even though she struggles to find her iPhone and bank card after a night out. Have you ever thought about that, actually? South Dubliners, they seem to find, everybody in South Dublin is a true crime expert until the iPhone charger goes missing. Oh, it's Magda. It must have been Magda, the cleaner. I know, she's always been very light-fingered. Yeah, no. It's just there under your bed. It fell under. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there it is. I love Magda. She's part of the family. I know, she's practically one of us. She's one of the Maguires. She's been here for like 20 years. But, this sort of charity work era of the early 2010s, where people were spending like $3,000 to go over to a third world country just to get a picture with some children in the local classroom for the Facebook profile pic. The obligatory pic. The obligatory album of them playing football with the youths. Do you know what I mean? Firstly, you're offside. And secondly, the classic joke. But secondly, do you not think you could contribute more to the decimated Haitian society than just a few keepy uppies? Like, I don't believe in this whole, like, why do you need to go over to get a selfie with the shovel to make yourself feel better? Like, literally nipping out of the Mercedes van with blacked out windows and bulletproof dash or bulletproof windscreen just to go in to happen upon some youths and have a kickabout. You know, it's like celebrities cutting the ribbons at the openings of places. Get in, get your picture and head back to the van. It's a box ticking exercise, much like me and therapy during my 20s. And I know some of you listening to this are probably going, Mark, just slow down, okay? First and foremost, the houses still get built, and that's the most important thing. Yes, and you're right, the houses do still get built, but let's be honest. The houses probably couldn't withstand the wind pressure of a burst packet of crisps, let alone the full force of a tropical storm, okay? I've got a 2-man tent that I use in Oxygen 2008 that probably has better insulation and a sturdier foundation than the gaffs that that are being built by these sort of influencers and first world college students. I always wonder about like influencers on the phones to their agents, sort of trying to rustle up a bit of attention by doing some charity work, you know? Yeah, I just really want to like throw myself into something, you know, numbers haven't been good recently and I feel like if I was to do something for like other poor, you know, basically I just want to raise money in advance, like do a few cool events, maybe get some sponsors on board, then like that would pay for my flights and accommodation and pocket money and a little bit extra and just really make a difference, you know, maybe for around 2 weeks in July. But then like ideally the second week I could go somewhere chill, I could just lie by are there poor people in Valladolid? Basically 1 week. If I could do 1 week, 5 days, working week of charity work, you know, India. Now I've got a dodgy stomach. No, is there anywhere closer? Are there poor people in Mykonos? You know, basically somewhere warm with cute kids. Atlantis isn't a real place. No, I know. I knew that. Dublin. What do you mean? The homeless. The ones on Grafton Street with rabbits? No. I was thinking somewhere sunnier. No. If only there was people struggling in Dubai. Do you know what I mean? Huh? Okay, welcome back to the weekly roast of your sisters-in-law. Guys, this isn't really a full willy bum bum section as per usual, but it's still fairly sloppy, I'm not going to lie. And also, some of the contributions were just too outrageous to include. Nevertheless, it's the willy bum bum section. If you're enjoying the podcast, please let me know on Instagram at Mehigan Mark. Send me a DM. As you know, I thrive entirely off reassurance and encouragement. So if you're enjoying today's show, shoot me a DM. Let me know where you're listening to it. Let me know what parts you enjoyed, and together we can laugh until the okay, let's go.
So my older brother was getting married, and my younger brother's, I don't know if she was his wife at his time or just his fiance, but she was wearing this dress, and she's kind of a loud person anyway, and she does this like noise that's like but like multiply that volume by 20 million. And she's got attention, this loud kind of screechy, throaty, half whistle, half weird noise. Anyway, so on the dance floor, she'd lift up her skirt, full flight, with no knickers on. Nothing, balls a coot, fanny galore, on the dance floor, a wedding with 240 guests.
No. Surely as soon as the upside down vagina appears, somebody walks over and covers her minge up with a serviette. Like, like this is, I don't know, maybe it was intentional. Maybe she thought the bride was about to throw the flowers over her shoulder and wanted to catch the stalk and just to get some extra grip. Do you know what I mean? This is like, I don't know. It's just completely insane. At the end of the day, when you marry into a family, you're really playing the lottery. It's hit or miss. You don't know what sort of loon you're going to inherit. It's a form of Russian roulette, sort of like going to. It's much like, I was actually laughing with Darren about this yesterday. It's like going through the airport security in Dublin Airport. Have you ever actually really sat down and thought about the people that work in security in Dublin Airport? If any of you listening work in Dublin Airport, please get in touch. I don't know how there hasn't been a sitcom written about the workers in security of Dublin Airport. It feels like there's no unity on whatever their stance is. Do you know what I mean? It's like they never had a team meeting and decided, okay, guys, we're all here as part of the same team. We're all going to adopt the same tone of voice. And we're all going to sing off the same proverbial hymn sheet. There's absolutely no sort of synergy with their attitudes. Like, you get one guy who is literally the most relaxed man on the planet. Do you know what I mean? One hand in his pocket, slouched up against the conveyor belt, almost like he's doing the Michael Jackson lean. You know, he's slurping a can of Monster, casually asking American tourists if they caught any Lucky Charms, and they love it. They're lapping it up. Do you know what I mean? Well, ladies, any leprechauns on your flight? Oh my God. Oh my God. Where are we flying today, girls? Oh wow, Oklahoma. Y'all come back now. You know, all that. And he's having a laugh and everyone's having a laugh because they're American and they don't understand the irony, and they probably think this potato pawed muck savage is their fourth cousin, you know. So you've got that guy, okay, but then you've got the other guy beside him, and he'll be berating a 92-year-old Asian woman to take off her shoelaces, belt and jewellery as if he's the warden in the Stanford prison experiment. Do you know what I mean? Excuse me, love, you're not fucking listening to me. I said you have 2 litres of fluid in your bag. Excuse me? Take your bag out of... Sorry, I'm literally Chinese. I couldn't be any more fucking Chinese if I tried. Like, do you know what I mean? How do you think I understand take yous or fluid out? Do you know the way that, how are you, missus? What's the crack with that bag there? How are you, missus? What's the crack? Do you think a 77-year-old Chinese woman from Shenzhen knows what how are you, missus? What's the crack means? Do you know what I mean? I'm literally Chinese. I've just never... And then he's got the baton out and he's like herding them over like a cattle prod. These bewildered Asian pensioners. It's just, there's no synergy. And then, of course, whenever I go through, as always, by the way, every single time that I go through security in the airport, I just somehow seem to be paired with an ex-fucking federal agent who happens to have come out of retirement for the day that I'm flying to Heathrow, you know? You know those guys. He hasn't worked on a case since his partner got shot in the face in the late 1980s. But as soon as he hears Mark Mehigan's planning a trip, he's back in the force, you know? He puts down the bottle, reclaims his badge, shaves his grizzly stubble, kicks the barmaid that's 20 years his junior out of the bed and gets back in action. And there I get the full service every single time, root and branch, stop there, yeah, take the belt off, shoes off, fondle feel and all the rest. And then I have one of my free waters and I go on my way. Good luck.
Okay, so she had been an absolute nightmare in the lead up to this party. You know, one of those people that it's all about them and it's never been anybody else's birthday before. So she asked me, and she was wearing this big disgusting dress, and she asked me could I go to the bathroom with her just before we left for the party. I was like, right, okay, whatever. Thought nothing of it because all girls go to the toilet together. And she went for a wee and then proceeded to ask me to wipe her.
No.
Said she couldn't reach. Now, I've never heard any 30-year-old say that before in my life, and the silence was absolutely deafening afterwards. So I just said, absolutely fucking not, you can wipe yourself. I haven't seen her in about 2 years since then. Me and him are still together. It's cute, without her face involved in it.
Will you wipe my bum, Kieran? Like, what would you do if I say, Kieran, any chance you'd...
Hello, HR.
Will you wipe my bum? No, absolutely not. But I can't reach. Cool, not my problem. Here's a couple of suggestions. Why don't you go outside and rub yourself up against the door frame like Baloo in the Jungle Book? Do you know what I mean? If you need to, why don't you just slide down the banisters a few times until it starts to chafe? Like this is just I don't know. I firstly I thought the vagina was self-drying, if I'm being brutally honest. But secondly, this seems to happen quite often. We've had a similar contribution to this where people have been asking other people to wipe them. I'm not familiar with what women get up to in the bathroom. Of course I'm not.
Hi Mark. My sister-in-law speaks with an American accent. Now bear in mind she was born and reared in Ireland, in one of the roughest areas of the southwest. It's like people have even asked me, did she grow up in America for a while? Because her accent is so American.
Look, we've had this before, okay? And I'm just going to have to say it again. Kieran, you know those people that go to like London for the summer and they come back with English accents, or they do a J1 in Huntington Beach and they come back with American accents? Doesn't seem to happen when they go to Thailand. Do you know what I mean though? You don't hear Cleena from Mount Marion coming back with a Thai accent. after spending 3 months. You don't hear of Kev, who has spent 4 months in Abuja in Nigeria. You don't get collected from the airport by your mate Kev, who spent 4 months in Nigeria. Do you know what I mean? Hey Kev, how did the trip go? How was Nigeria? I have got a young son. Yeah, I know you've got a young son. What's the story? And he said to me, Papa, for Christmas, this year I want the S-bus. I said, no, you can have a foot up the fucking ass and you'll go to school like a good boy. Oh my God, Kev. This is complete. I just don't. People who change their accents, okay? They're doing it intentionally. For instance, my voice, right? I lived in the UK for 10 years. My accent is still the exact same as it was before I left. And I know to some of you, it might be the oral equivalent of chewing tinfoil, but at least it's authentic. There are so many people at the moment out there, and particularly in Dublin, changing their accents. And it's sort of like, you know, on those, and I've spoken about these before, but those nauseatingly insincere spoken word pieces that are popping up on advertisements for home insurance or mortgage brokers or just pints. Do you know what I mean? And you've got this guy very much from Sandy Cove, but it's the princes, the paupers, the Cindy Laupers. Girls just want to have fun. But the weight of the city weighs a ton. Where's your daughter? Where's your son? We need banks, not tanks. So let's talk funds. Finding a roof over your head with permanent HIV. I mean, we care, you care, because Irish homes are happy homes with home with HIV. None of that made any sense. Do you know those ads, those garbage mortgage? It's just an exquisite cocktail of corporate garbage and words that sound like they mean something when you put them beside each other, but they dissolve into complete and utter gibberish. You know these, as I always say, they're now doing they're doing the rounds on Instagram, these sort of spoken word pieces. And it's like, I've said this before, but a guy I know, he talks about Irish guys now who are trying to imbue this like football terrorist British bloke culture, and they're pretending to be a different class and come from a different cultural context than what they have, but it's the sort of like really earnestly looking into the camera. As I always say, there's no such thing as a truly dark day with a black pint of plain and a fistful of change for the 7 bus home. With today's catch wrapped with the grease on your lap and the vinegar stains all hazy below. It's 2024, Ushin. You've got a degree in graphic design from NCAD, do you know what I mean? Your parents just bought a ski chalet in Marybelle. Where is this accent coming from? It's absolutely derangement levels. I'm fairly sure your jumper, by the way, is literally from the Easter Rising. Your dad bought it at auction. This is whole, I don't know. Oh my God.
Hi, Mark. Speaking of sister-in-laws, my own one lives on a golf course. And when I was in her house one day, I was having the chats and I was telling her a story. And she proceeded to tell me to keep your voice down. We live near the 9th hole. I mean, the windows and the doors were all closed. It was the middle of winter. I'm loud, but I'm not that loud. Notions. She'd give Hyacinth Bucket a run for her money.
Okay, this is amazing. Firstly, forget the 9th hole. She sounds like a pain in the hole. Snobs, snobbery. I know you might laugh when you hear my accent and think that who am I to be ridiculing snob? But that level of snobbery, yeah, pathetic. I was in the Nespresso store, would you believe, on Saturday morning, and I'd never been in there before. Have you ever been in a Nespresso store?
No.
Nespresso stores are essentially the Wuhan laboratory of middle class weekends. Genuine. It's where snobbery is created. It's like a sort of startup accelerator program for recently married couples in their 30s hoping to elevate their social standing by purchasing emblems of wealth, and at the same time staving off what can only be described as the indolence that comes with the luxurious life in the suburbs. Let me put it more simply, Karen. If middle class culture was Destiny's Child, Beyonce would be the Nespresso store, Kelly Rowland would be a dry robe, and then Michelle Williams would be the neglected slow cooker or the kayak bought during COVID out in the back shed. Like, this is people who haven't been swimming since their conception these days, by the way, are wearing dry robes. Do you know what I mean? Walking around Donnybrook like they've done 50 lengths. You're wearing a dry robe whilst riding around in a Range Rover. You're less Michael Phelps and more Vanessa Phelps. This is just Anyway, there's the Nespresso shop in town off Grafton Street. You'd want to hear the conversations between the couples, like, oh yeah, look there, orange shortbread, coffee pods. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine an Oreo flavoured mug of Biscoff piss first thing in the morning? That'd be fucking mental, wouldn't it? Yeah, I heard Sarah and Philip got a Sage. They got one of those Sage coffee machines last Christmas. Yeah. Well, we'd heard they were very good, but they're actually getting divorced. Philip's been riddling the au pair again, so he said it's because of the baby weight that Sarah's put on around the midriff. Anyway, I won't stay. We're only passing through. Just the 16 shortcake caramel lattes, please. Greg, come back here. We'll leave you now and get off your phone. I still find it mental they have them on Snapchat on the weekend on a separate phone. It's bizarre, isn't it? Okay, guys, welcome back to the weekly roast yet again. That's 3 welcomes. Someone's got a case of the welcomes. I hope you're enjoying the show. It's my favourite time of the week. You don't realise the happiness I feel sitting in this squeaky chair in the studio. If you enjoyed the podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Mehigan Mark. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Mark Mehigan. First article is going live this Friday. It's the final section. Let's get into it.
Hi, Mark. My sister-in-law wrote her husband in my spare room, even though they lived together. Like, contain yourself. And then they left the sheets on the bedroom floor when they went home. Wonderful.
That's just so disrespectful. If you're staying for a few months, fine. Let the boys play. Let the boy watch. But like, if you're staying for one night, just keep the snake in its cage. Just don't go. Do you know what I mean? If I was no, but no way. I just don't like people that. You know those people that don't abide other people's house rules because they have this idea that they're just really individual and they just do things themselves. Like hippies basically are like that. I have a real low tolerance for modern hippies. I used to live with these 2 hippies in East London before I lived with like the legends that I did ultimately live with. I lived with these 2 hippies who survived effectively on vibes and good energy, you know? And what I mean is they rented me their room for £800 a month sterling, but then they still lived in the flat. And they just slept on the couch. And I remember bringing it up after like, okay, fair enough. There was a couple of nights at the beginning. I was like, yeah, maybe this is just a little slight overlap. Do you know what I mean? But then I brought it up in conversation after about a week and they had that sort of crusty, you know, yeah, like, man, you just honestly don't be letting this get to you, Mark. You know, oh, sorry, their accent would be, Mark, don't let it get to you, brother. You know, just we're essentially just resting our heads here after dark. It shouldn't even, you know, we're not in your space. We're not in any of these, you know, don't even let it get to you. You don't decide what I let get to me. Do you know what I mean? I don't, Mark, you know, we are very spiritual people. People who say that they're spiritual, I find are usually the lead. You shouldn't have to keep saying it. You know, it's like, we've had this before, but like guys who say, look, I don't mean to be creepy. You're about to say something creepy. Because you don't usually, normal people don't have to caveat a sentence with, now I don't mean to be creepy, but would you like to post me some of your socks? You know, it's just like, when people say spiritual, I feel like these days, when someone refers to themselves as spiritual, usually they just mean superstitious and a bit thick. That's the modern real, that's what the word means, you know. Oh yeah, just got back from Bali, so feeling fairly spiritual. You purchased a pair of elephant pants on your mum's debit card, got your hair braided, and now identify as a vegetarian who still frequently eats meat. You know what I mean? You are the spiritual equivalent of a wrongly attributed Marilyn Monroe quote as a Facebook status. And I've had deeper baths. You believe in horoscopes. Do you believe in horoscopes?
No.
Thank you. Good God. Like, oh, they're the type of people who look at their phone at 11:11 as if it bears any significance. Oh my God, it's guys, that's so freaky. What happened, Susan? I just looked at my phone and it's 11:11 as if that's a message from somebody beyond the grave. Once again, I might posit this, okay? Let me just ask you, listener. What sort of ghoul is gifted the ability to communicate with the living and then decides to do that via the 12-hour clock on a smartphone? Do you know, at least move some furniture or wail in the back of the wardrobe, shake the curtains as they're coming down the front drive, or howl at the moon. Like, imagine all the ghouls up in heaven, okay, or hell, wherever ghouls reside. Imagine all the ghouls sitting around the sort of otherworldly afterlife equivalent of a Costa coffee catching up. And so what did you get up to this week, Simon? I was in the Tower of London, actually, incarnating the spirit of Anne Boleyn, frightening Japanese tourists. Two of them just shat themselves, yeah. Quite the rush, actually. What about you? Flying Dutchman, was it? No. The Grey Lady? No. What did you do, Mark? Just sort of showed up on the iPhone at 11:11. Well, actually, I didn't even show it myself. I just sort of like let the person look at their phone at 11:11. Good stuff. Spooky. Don't shag your husband in your husband's sister's house. It's one night only.
Hi, Mark. So I'm going to tell you a story about my sister. I have no sister-in-laws, but sometimes I wish I had, because 2 out of 3 of my sisters are lunatics. But sure, look, you can't choose your family. So this one particular day, she came down to visit me in my house with her baby. It must have been, 7 or 8 weeks old. And I knew my sister vaped, but I've never seen her do it in front of the baby. But anyway, we were sitting in the sitting room, I think she was feeding him. And she pulled out her vape, started vaping. I was like, oh my God, you don't vape around the baby, do you? And she just goes, she said, won't do him any harm. Sure, wouldn't it be worse if I was smoking? I was like, oh my God, I'm not a doctor, I don't know which is worse. But also, it wasn't the first person I had to tell to kind of stop vaping in front of my own child. My father-in-law kept doing it. Like, you would think that it is common sense not to do that, but clearly not. Loving the podcast.
Not all heroes wear capes. Not all weirdos smoke vapes, but a lot of them do. Now get that passion fruit flavoured peace pipe out of my sight, and at least 2 pandemic-sized meters away from my child. Don't be vaping around babies. We have to do something about the vape culture in this country. These days, walking down any single high street in the country and you are just engulfed in the saccharine smell of a Geno's, or you're blown away and engulfed by the smell of someone's Turkish Delight flavoured vape or watermelon cocktail piss or whatever the latest trend is in the vape culture. I mean, it's absolutely derangement levels.
My brother lives in Canada and has a fiancée and 2 small kids. Earlier this year, he discovered that she was having an affair. It completely broke him. But for the sake of their small kids, who are 4 and 2, they've decided to give it another go. I was absolutely disgusted at her behaviour and still can't get my head around the fact that they're together. I refused to have anything to do with her and blocked her on socials. About 3 months after the affair, he discovered that I had blocked her and absolutely hit the roof. Had a complete and utter hissy fit with me, but is still with this hag.
Yeah, that's tough. I think it's very tough for family members in that scenario, and ultimately you have to be very careful, because if they get back together, I know somebody, I'll tread carefully here. I know somebody who was in a relationship with somebody. They were probably ill-suited. They broke up after a very long time together and lots of people were relieved. I foolishly made my relief known, only for 3 weeks later for them to get back together.
Oh no.
And for him to tell her how relieved I had been. To say she hated me afterwards. It's very tough. It's a very complicated situation. But I do find it funny when couples, like when couples get back together and they start, you always know when they start using sentences like, oh, we're all very full circle. What if you wanted to shag somebody else? At least one person, that's what happened. She moved to Australia for a few years and then bounced back like a boomerang, because the realisation that settling down in the suburbs of Sydney with a guy called Steve who wears toe socks and has the direction of a daddy long legs might not be the answer to all of our problems. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing full circle here about, but we just have to go along with it. It's so awkward when a couple Like when you've known them and they break up and then they get back together and then you just go, oh, hiya, Tina. Yeah, I haven't seen you in 18 months. Oh, did you get new shoes? Did you get a haircut? Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, no, I'm actually, yeah. It's like whenever an expat comes home from being away and you're like, oh, so what's the story? Why you moved back? And you just go, they say something really vague, like they just missed the crack. Good stuff. Why did you actually come back? Do you know what I mean? It's such a get out of jail free card for Irish people who want to come back home. You could literally leave a trail of destruction across the entire planet, but as long as they come back to Ireland and say they missed a crack, that's the only passport needed for re-entry. So, how come you left Vancouver?
You know yourself, I never really had any meaningful connections there, you know, I never planted my roots.
Hold on. Weren't you married for 8 years to a Canadian wife with a small, ugly son? Do you know?
Yeah, I suppose I was, but you know, ultimately I just missed the crack.
There we go. That's fair enough. That's all we need. That's good enough. That's good enough for me. Now you're talking to me in my language. You see, people who haven't moved away love hearing that people are moving back because they missed the crack, because it makes them feel better about their decision to stay in the first place. You can go anywhere you want in the world. You can go to Tinahely, you can go to Tennessee, you can go to Tinkambandu, but you'll never beat the crack. You know, I met somebody in IKEA recently. After my Nespresso jaunt, I went out to IKEA. I met this girl. She'd been, actually, she's mates with the one who went to Haiti. It's a small old world, that. Fiction. But she had been out in she'd been out in Melbourne for like the best part of a decade. Kieran, where do you buy your clothes? No, she'd been out in Melbourne for the best part of a decade. And she'd worked as like a lecturer in a university. Like seriously, you know, good job, good career, like doing insanely well for herself. And I asked her, I was like, oh, so why'd you move back from Melbourne, Sarah? And she goes, oh, I suppose I just missed the crisps. And started laughing aggressively. No, I'm going to need more than that, please, Saz. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to need more than that as to why you left Ireland. My theory is, and I'll finish on this, people leave Ireland for the very same reasons that they left in the first place. It's just nice to be home, you know, going to the familiar places, seeing the same people, you know, seeing all the usual people. Yeah, that's why you left. That's exactly why you left. Kieran, will you wipe my bum?
It was a random evening a couple of summers ago. We got a Chinese. I don't know when it was. We just got out. We got a Chinese, right? And that was okay. She found out that we'd got a Chinese and rang a couple of the family members crying and hysterics about how she hadn't been invited for the Chinese and how it was just a disgrace, and there was no event, there was no birthdays, there was no special occasion. This was just a random Chinese that we were getting for our tea one evening. And yeah, she rang round, mother, sister, that I was the worst person in the world for not inviting her over for a Chinese. She texted my partner that it was all my fault. He even tried to stick up for me and was just like, no, it's not your fault. We just don't want any company this evening, blah, blah, blah. And that still wasn't good enough. Bit of a tantrum. A couple of days later, she made an excuse to come to my house for something. Now, she didn't very often visit me when I was on my own, so I was a bit kind of concerned at this point. I was like, she's going to bring this up. Lo and behold, I actually had a friend there that she wasn't expecting to be there, and I could see that she was kind of caught off guard that I had this friend sitting in the house unexpectedly. And next thing, she just was just like, that's it, I've had enough. All these things happening and me getting no one's getting invited to any of this. And I was like, what? Yeah, I was really, really annoyed about you getting a Chinese the other night and not inviting me over. I was just so annoyed. And I just thought it was a disgrace. Like, this went on and on. And I tried to I didn't want to fight back with her because I'm not a very confrontational person. And she was speaking to me in a really horrible, horrible manner. And I was just like, look, please don't speak to me like that in my house or I will have to ask you to leave. But I interrupted her to say this. And her response back was like, excuse me, I'm speaking. So then she sat for a while anyway. And I just kind of pander off, waiting for her to leave. And then I just said, look, I'm going to bed. Can you please leave? And yeah, she did. And she was just really like horrible and confrontational and really aggressive, very aggressive. So yeah, pretty much all of that over a Chinese, a random evening we had a Chinese and she didn't get invited.
Completely insane. This woman to me said, "But what about you? What about you? How you doing?" That's not my Derry accent's not that bad. What about you? Shout out Dungiven, anyone listening from Dungiven. This woman sounds to me like an only me woman. I've talked about these people before on the podcast, but you know those people in life, right? I like to call them the only me's, and they are always the only me. Oh, what a week. You know, you bump into them. Oh, only me. Only things ever happen to me. Oh, God, the world is out to get me. Oh, only me. Oh, only me. Oh, what a week. You bump into them and they just, you know, these people, you bump into them in the supermarket and they just start dumping all of their personal problems on top of you and they never once inquire about your well-being. Oh, only me. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad I bumped into you, Mark, and I'm so glad you've asked for a chat. I haven't actually. I'm literally looking at the YR and wondering what's the difference between YR and KP. Like, there's no, oh, yeah. Anyway, how are you getting on? They might briefly ask you how you're getting on, but that's merely a verbal trampoline for them to bounce back in with their own plot lines once again. Do you know what I mean? Colour is the chaos of their life, and the picture is always dramatic and unstable. Oh, Mark. Well, only me. Well, what a week. I've got to get back down to the mechanics straight after this, you know, get the Kia. Oh, only me. I ended up rear-ending some old fella in the golf club on Friday. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, no, he wasn't looking where he was going, stupid fool. No. Where was it? Just on the main road? No, it was the fairway of the 15th, but, you know, that place is terribly signposted. Oh, the road, just what a fella. The road is practically green, you know, these old fellas. Wait, hold on. Did you drive onto a golf course and hit some man with your car? Oh, that's what he's telling the guards anyway, before he fell asleep, only me. Oh, this guy was 94, you know, he shouldn't be playing any sport at all. Oh, now there's a dent in the bonnet the size of a grandad, and I hadn't paid the insurance either for 3 years, so only me, I'm getting taxed for that, and only me. Thank you so much for listening to the Weekly Roast, guys. I just appreciate it so much. If you enjoy the show, if you've enjoyed this year of podcasting, please subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Mark Mehigan. There will be new content every week. If you're a fan of my writing, if you want to support me on that journey, I would hugely appreciate it. Patreon.com/Mark Mehigan. You will get a new article. There's one releasing this Friday. Let's go. Thanks for the support. All the best. Take care. Good night. God bless. Be good. All the usual sentiments. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.